I'm really excited to be chatting with you guys. This is a topic and a presentation I've done a number of times, but I've never done it specifically for individuals within HR. A lot of the times I'm doing it for various management professionals or employees in an employee resource group. So I think it will be really interesting to share this information with you guys and also hear your questions from the HR perspective. And I think that this is a really important topic given everything going on in the workforce and in the job market right now. So really excited to talk about how we can facilitate and help individuals uncover their strengths, their unique skill sets, and ultimately help them feel more productive and more fulfilled in their roles. So as Emma mentioned, just brief overview about myself. I'm a career and success coach. And like Emma mentioned, my goal is to help people build careers where they don't absolutely dread Monday morning. I think that we spend enough time at work that it should be a place that we enjoy and that we can thrive and that we can grow. And it's all about really learning the strategies to make that happen for ourselves. And really, like she mentioned, focusing on our mindsets, focusing on tools, setting goals to create success in our current roles. And within my business, there are two sides of my business. I have the private side of my business where, like many coaches, I work with individuals one-on-one, in groups, in courses. And then I also have the corporate side of my business where I do things of this nature, like presentations and workshops, executive coaching, speed coaching, and a variety of different services. And again, as Emma mentioned, prior to this, I worked in sales. I was in the ad tech industry for about 10 years and was growing in that career and climbing the corporate ladder like I had always wanted for myself. But I personally felt very disconnected from what I was doing and just knew in my heart that it wasn't the right path for me. And after a number of pivots and changes and trying to make things work, I decided I needed to really do something entirely different. And through a lot of introspection and networking and research, I came across the world of coaching and really recognized that it hit on my skill set. It hit on the impact that I ultimately wanted to make. So while I was still working, I went into a certification program. I then started building out the business as a side hustle and then came into it full time. And I have now been doing this full time for 3 years, which is crazy. I can't believe it's already been 3 years. And these past 3 years, I'm sure all of us have experienced, it's been pretty crazy, like I mentioned before, and only getting crazier by the day. So with these large shifts and these big changes in the workplace and in the workforce, my goal has really been focused on providing professional tools, providing resources to create a more engaged and fulfilled workforce, and what I like to think of as employee-first companies. So with that being said, just a quick agenda of what we're going to talk about today. So I've divided this into 3 sections. As Emma said, this will not be the full hour. I want to have ample time for Q&A, but first we'll talk a little bit about career desires, the 3 things that most millennials and Gen Zers really want out of their careers and out of their companies. We'll then talk a little bit about this notion of finding career fulfillment, building that sense of engagement. How do we do that? What are the things that we ultimately need to uncover and investigate to help us do so? And then finally, applying our findings and our action steps, really focusing on self-advocacy. What do we do with this newfound information? So what do millennials and Gen Z want out of their careers? As we're all aware, millennials and Gen Z take up quite a large component of the workforce right now, and they're obviously different than the generations that have come before them. So it's really important to think about what are they looking for in their current roles? What are they looking for when we're trying to attract new talent and really bring in that talent and ultimately retain that talent? At this point, over these past 3 years, I have had hundreds, if not maybe thousands of what I call discovery calls with clients where I really look to uncover what's been missing in their roles, what they're looking for in their future roles. And there are a number of themes that typically come up. But the 3 things that I consistently find are what I think of as an internal growth trajectory, learning and development opportunities, and impact, or what I think of as purpose and recognition. So talking through these things a little bit more, I think that there's a misconception with millennials and even with Gen Z as well, that they tend to job hop and that ultimately they don't really want to grow where they are. And while to a degree, yes, there is a job hopping strategy that happens, most individuals really do want to be able to join a company where they can grow and where they can thrive. It might not be, the same baby boomer type experience where they're going to join a company for 20 plus years, but they're not necessarily looking to jump from job to job every single year. They want to know that they're joining a company where there is a clear path for growth for them and they won't run into those plateaus. Learning and development opportunities, knowing that they can continuously grow their skill sets, that they can be mentored, and impact/purpose and recognition, really feeling like there is meaning behind their role and what they're doing, no matter how senior or junior they are, and feeling like that role is being recognized, that it's being appreciated. So diving into these just a little bit more, some of the questions that I often hear or that people are often thinking to themselves when they're in their current roles or when they're exploring a new company is this notion of lateral or vertical moves. Will I be supported if I want to move into a management position? Will I be supported internally if I decide, you know what, I'm not really on the right team right now. I want to stay within my company, but I want to make a lateral move onto another team. Is there a clear path? So as I mentioned before, I can ensure that I'm continuously growing and don't reach that point of plateauing, because usually when we hit that plateau, that's when engagement really drops. And that's when people start looking for jobs elsewhere. And will my manager be supportive of my growth? This is something I hear all the time and have had countless calls and experiences where I have heard directly from people that they're trying to get a promotion that they've been working so hard for. They're trying to make some type of internal move. And for whatever reason, their manager is blocking it. And obviously, I'm sure we all know how important positive leadership and positive management is. But when we think about internal growth trajectory, who that manager is going to be and how supportive they're going to be of that growth is really, really crucial in terms of feeling happy and feeling satisfied in those roles. So that's a little bit about internal growth trajectory. Learning and development, which I know is definitely a growing arm within the HR capacity. Really exploring how will the company support my growth? Are there opportunities for me to upskill? Is there maybe a stipend towards learning and development where I can take courses or certifications so I can grow my skill set? Are there mentor-mentee opportunities? Someone even outside of the manager, maybe in a various leadership position where I can really go to them for support, to lean on, and to, again, really be able to scale within my career. These are a lot of the questions that they're thinking about. And that, again, when call it answered correctly, lead to that sense of fulfillment in their careers. And finally, impact, purpose, and recognition, which I think is probably the most kind of typical millennial Gen Z trait. A lot of the times, especially when you're more junior in your career or when you're more entry level, you really want to feel that no matter what, again, how junior that position is, that there is a clear understanding of the impact that role has, that you know how you're contributing to the team, that you know how you're contributing to the company. Because of course, when you feel like your role is impactful, that makes you feel more engaged, that makes you feel more confident in yourselves. So whether it's in a current role, whether that's exploring a new role, really making it clear the purpose that role serves and how that can help the overall team and the overall company. Like I said, do I feel like I serve an important purpose? How will my work be recognized and rewarded? Really thinking through this. And I think there's definitely a concept around these generations just of this notion of just doing thankless work, working and putting in so much effort to, not have it be recognized, not have it be appreciated. And I think that as humans, we all desire that level of recognition and appreciation, and especially in our careers, which is a place that we're looking to grow, we're looking for feedback. It's really important to have that sense of recognition. And that recognition can obviously come in a variety of different forms. So that's a little bit about the three areas and the three consistent themes that I have found over these past few years that are really kind of at the heart of what these generations are looking for out of their careers. And like I said, we'll have plenty of time. Any questions or clarifications on any of this, more than happy to answer. So We just talked about it a little bit, but why is it so important to be engaged with the work that we do? Obviously, it seems obvious, but I think it's important to really talk about and explain in detail. So often when we're doing work we enjoy and that we're ultimately good at, that leads to us feeling more fulfilled and more engaged with that work and with what we're doing on a daily basis. When we're more engaged with our work, we tend to feel happier and we tend to feel more confident in ourselves in that role and in the workplace. And ultimately, the more confident we are, the higher retention that we see among employees. And there have been a variety of studies that have really shown this. Just one quick stat from a survey that Indeed did a number of years ago, 96% of workers say they're more likely to stay at their current company when they feel more confident. So if we know that confidence is so important and we know that engagement really leads to that sense of confidence, then how is it that we can build that sense of engagement? How can we feel more fulfilled by the work that we're doing and by the roles that we're in on a daily basis? So these are what I like to call the 5 areas that lead to more engagement in our careers. And I'm going to go through them each one by one. But these are our career values, our areas of engagement, our areas of disengagement, our zone of genius, and our states of flow. So breaking down what each of these are, areas of engagement. As it sounds, this is the projects, the tasks, the work that we do in our roles that we look forward to the most on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. So of course, this is going to vary from person to person and from role to role, but just a couple of examples. Maybe it's when I'm in team meetings and when I get to present, when I'm doing a brainstorm session with my clients, if I'm building out some type of new internal process that can be scaled across the rest of the team, a variety of different ways to be engaged. And again, it's going to be team and role specific. Areas of disengagement, on the other hand, as we could assume, these are the projects and the tasks that we look forward to the least at work on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. And right here, I have the exact same examples because what's super engaging for one person in their role might be disengaging for another person, right? It's so dependent on who the person is and where they really thrive and what their skill set is. Zone of genius. I'm sure you guys have all heard this phrase before. This is really thought of as our unique superpower at work. Sorry if things are popping up on my screen. Our unique superpower at work, where we're doing work that we're just innately good at, that comes very naturally to us, that we enjoy, and that beyond that work, we feel it serves a larger purpose. Going back to that notion of impactful, purposeful work. So I have a few examples here. As you guys can see, this is a little bit different than areas of engagement in the sense that it's a little bit more zoomed out. And it's almost like, again, that notion of a unique superpower. Like I am in my zone of genius when I'm creating a process that brings order to a disorganized situation, when I am bringing people together and leveraging each of their skill sets to solve a unique problem. So it's really thinking about like, what do I want to be known for? To a degree, what is my personal brand? What do I want people to come to me for help within our roles? So that's a little bit about zone of genius. Then we have states of flow, or what's also referred to as deep work. This is when we're performing a task or a project and we just get so completely lost in what we're doing, so immersed in it that time flies. And we go and look at the clock and suddenly 2 hours have flown by. And what's really great about doing work in our states of flow is that we tend to produce higher quality work because we're far less distracted and we just have a much more successful output when we're doing work in that state of flow. Couple of examples of states of flow. This might be, building out an Excel spreadsheet, back-end QA, analyzing and compiling data, schedule creation. So a variety of different things. Again, totally people dependent. And then finally, I have values. So I know values are something that we're all familiar with, but I find that most often people are very unfamiliar with what their work values are. And I think of work or career values different from what your values are in your more personal life. And when we're working at a company or in a role or on a team that's in conflict with our own work values, it can really impact the way that we feel about ourselves and the work that we're doing. So it's so important to understand what are the core values to me that are important to me at work. And I have a few examples here, whether it's collaboration, creativity, autonomy, recognition, community, really thinking about what is most important to me in my role and in my career. So, what is the goal of these 5 areas? The point is really helping us and supporting us in gathering information and to a degree, collecting data points. Because the truth is, we very rarely in our careers really stop to reflect on this type of information. And when we do it, we can really start noticing certain things. Are there patterns that I'm seeing that I'm consistently engaged when I'm doing X type of work? What significance might this have on my career? Are there transferable skills that I'm noticing when it comes to things like I mentioned before, like an internal lateral move? Maybe I noticed that I might be a better fit for a different internal team, right? So it can help us cultivate all this information to really understand what do we want to do more of? What do we potentially want to do less of? Because maybe there's another member of our team who thrives in an area that we don't thrive as much. So, really encouraging people to think about this information and be able to leverage it so they can do more of the work that they're innately good at, that they really enjoy, and ultimately feel more engaged. And I have here just a couple of prompts when I'm working with clients or employees. These are just a few examples of things that can start to help us really uncover these 5 areas for ourselves. And as we know, building on this, the significance of these 5 areas, knowledge is always power, but knowledge is especially powerful within our careers. And when we reflect on these 5 areas, when we collect that information and those data points, we can get a lot clearer on what we're good at, what we want to do more of, how we can really stay in alignment with our values and what's important to us. And that can really impact how we thrive at work and how we feel about our work as a whole. So we've uncovered these 5 areas, or we've talked about what these 5 areas are to help us feel more engaged, to help us feel more interested in the work that we're doing. Now, what do we do with it, right? Because it's not just enough to do the deeper work to uncover this information. We actually have to leverage it in an efficient and an effective way. And there are a few ways to go about this. So this is where self-advocacy comes into play. So a lot of the times, when we have one-on-ones with our manager, when we have conversations, with leadership on our team, we get so caught up in, the day-to-day and the projects that we very rarely get to have conversations where they're really anchored in this type of information, saying, I've been reflecting. What I really recognize is that I really thrive when I can do projects that allow me to do XYZ. And I really get into, a state of flow when I do this type of work. And while of course we can't always pick and choose exactly what we do, right? I always say there's going to be elements of our work that we don't enjoy, and that's just par for the course. That is life and that is work. There is something to be said about doing this type of work to really figure out, okay, if I enjoy this more, how can I share that with my manager and say, I really enjoy working on these types of projects. So I really want to flag myself the next time something like this comes down the line. Please let me know if I can be more involved, right? That's where the self-advocacy comes into play. That's where we can really build our confidence and be able to speak up more and develop those leadership skills by leveraging this information to really share how we can be more helpful and how we can add more value. So sharing these findings with our managers is really important. Using this information to identify new projects that we can work on, new skills that we can develop, potentially, like I said before, a new internal team that we can work with cross-functionally. I also encourage people to share the findings with your team. So when it comes to efficiencies, like I said before, where one person is super engaged, another person might be really disengaged by that same project. So is there a way to create more efficiencies across the team where we say, okay, Sarah's really good at this, she's going to take the lead on this. And Mary, she's really good at this, she's going to take the lead on this. And not only will that create an atmosphere where people are getting to do more of the work that they enjoy and that they're really good at, but will that lead to better output? Will that lead to better productivity because people are really honing in on their unique skill sets? And then finally, leveraging this information can also help you advocate on behalf of bigger goals that you want for yourself. So if you notice, I'm super engaged when I do public speaking and I do these small team meetings that I lead. Maybe we say, okay, my next step is I'm going to do a bigger presentation to a group of 20 people. And I'm going to keep pushing myself and moving myself up in that way. And obviously, the more you can identify large goals and then really hit and exceed those goals, that's a really important aspect of building confidence in ourselves and in the work that we're doing. And as we've talked about, confidence is really paramount to feeling happy and wanting to stay in the roles that we're in. So with this new information that we have about ourselves, we can begin sharing it with the right people, we can start challenging ourselves, and we can ultimately grow. And like I said before, knowing you guys are all individuals from HR, really thinking about how can we facilitate and bring in these types of questions, into our own companies? Is something that can be built into onboarding? Is this something we can do with a manager training so that they can, lead the people that they're working with and teach them how to uncover these areas and then have conversations around it so that you can create that open line of communication and really be fostering your team to lean into your skill sets and to ultimately grow. So a lot of different ways to think about this, but like I said before, I generally do this on more of an employee basis. So I think as HR leaders who focus on bringing in new talent and retaining that talent, really thinking about how can we incorporate these types of questions and this type of work into our company as a whole. So really summarizing all of this, we know that confidence is key to our success and to longevity within our roles and within our companies. And feeling engaged, feeling fulfilled by the work that we're doing directly correlates to this level of confidence. So we really need to start with building that engagement to drive that confidence and to drive that retention. So as a quick recap, and as I said before, we're not going to take the full hour. We covered 3 different things today. First and foremost, career desires among that millennial and Gen Z generation, internal growth trajectory, learning and development opportunities, as well as impact, purpose, and recognition. Then finding fulfillment, driving engagement in our roles through uncovering those 5 areas, our areas of engagement, disengagement, our states of flow, zone of genius, and our career values. And then using and leveraging this information and our findings, all these various data points that we're getting through these 5 different areas to be able to better self-advocate for ourselves, to better have conversations with our managers, with other people on our teams, and to even potentially, speak with various HR leaders like yourself. So thank you guys. I really want to make sure that we have a ton of time for questions. As I mentioned before, if you want to contact me or reach out, I have my email here. I have my website, my LinkedIn here. If there's ever any way that I can support you or help you in any way, please let me know. I love working with people in HR and have worked with people in HR in a variety of different capacities. I also was mentioning this to Emma earlier, but I do a lot of work with company ERGs. So if there's any way that I can ever support you, please don't hesitate to reach out. And with that being said, I would love to answer any questions you have about any of this, or potentially like questions separate from this that you might have for a career coach that works with different talent. So thank you guys so much for having me, and I hope that this was helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. If you have a question, feel free just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask it or put it in the chat. Jamie says, good information. Thanks for sharing. Awesome. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Sika, will this be available to rewatch? Yes, I will send out a recording tomorrow or Friday for you to rewatch. Melissa says, thank you for the great presentation.
Of course. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah. Any questions? Feel free. Don't be shy.
And again, you can always follow up with me also over email if you have a question that pops into your head later.
I have a question.
Of course.
And it's about, I guess, building confidence. I'm sorry, I apologize. I was a little late.
All good.
But what are some suggestions you have, I guess? Because I think that's my biggest issue is the confidence piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I do realize that, when you are more confident, you are more efficient in your job.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes I'm not. So I'm trying to figure out ways to become more confident.
Yeah. So, I mean, outside, first and foremost, in terms of what we talked about today. So,
right.
really uncovering those 5 areas, I find that because we never stop to really reflect, the truth is like we're not always really clear on what our brand is, like what are the skills that we're ultimately really good at that we want people to come to us for. So I think even just diving into this type of work and really recognizing where am I super engaged? What is my zone of genius, right? Those various types of questions can really help us uncover specific things about ourselves. And like I mentioned before, we can leverage that information to set goals. Okay, if I know I like doing this type of work, how can I challenge myself to bring this to the next level? And when we set goals and when we hit goals, that is a really, really, really transformative way to build confidence. There are so many studies that show that like just setting goals that we actually keep and follow through on, that in itself really builds our confidence. But beyond these 5 areas and starting to do this work, there are a number of different things. Like I could talk about this for a really long time. Some of them are, while I know very cliche and corny, I think very true. A lot of it is really just about getting out of your comfort zone, right? So what is something that's going to feel uncomfortable for me, that's going to challenge me in some way, but that when I do it, just taking that action and moving again outside of my comfort zone, like, and seeing that you successfully did whatever was outside of your comfort zone, that builds confidence, right? And that allows you to, again, grow and scale and do new, hard, challenging things. I would say language is also really important. A lot of the times, the way that we speak about ourselves at work, or just some of like the colloquial phrases that and terminology that we use in person conversations or over email, can really undermine our confidence. So it's really paying attention to the way that we speak and eliminating, filler words, stopping, not saying things like just or apologizing all the time, really being conscientious of our language. And then I would say another really great way to build confidence, while you might not think it does, is asking for feedback. So being open to constructive criticism, understanding where you can grow, because that's only going to benefit you. And if you can get constructive feedback, take that, implement it, and learn from that, and then see how you're doing better as a result, that's going to make you feel a lot more confident in yourself. So like I said, I could talk about this for a long time, but those are just a few sort of top of mind things.
Thank you.
Of course.
We have a few questions in the chat. Melissa asks, would you recommend for someone looking to make a career change? What would you recommend for someone looking to make a career change? Should they take a self-assessment test to determine their strengths and weaknesses? Or how will they know a new career is right for them?
So a couple of things. I think that beyond self-assess, I think that if you have a feeling in your stomach or there's something in your gut telling you that you want to explore something new, you should lean into that, right? And I think that I'm not a big believer in assessments. Like I love Myers-Briggs. I do that with my clients, but I think a lot of the times it's not as easy as just doing an assessment and it's going to spit out the answer and tell us what it is that we need to do in our careers or with the rest of our lives. So when I do work with clients, or if I'm working with employees, it really is like I focus on these 5 areas, because I find that if you really dive deep, it can bring out so much that you don't know about yourself, and it can help you uncover, wow, I'm working as, a customer success manager, but I recognize that all the things that I really enjoy in my role have to do with project management. It's like creating schedules and timelines and all these various things. And that in itself can help you recognize, maybe these are transferable skills that would apply to a different type of role, right? Maybe instead of customer success, I should be working in a project manager role. So I think it's like really the reflection on your current career and doing this type of work that can help us figure out like what the right path might be, and if we're quote unquote misplaced to a degree. So that's something that I definitely recommend. But I would say also just like general traits that might indicate it's time for a job change. If you are in a place where you're like, there isn't anywhere that you want to grow, right? So we talked about plateauing. If you're like, I'm not interested in in my manager's position, I'm not interested in this internal growth team, like there's nowhere that I really see myself, that can be an indicator that it might be time to explore something new. If you feel like your values aren't in alignment with the company, maybe there's been a leadership change and the mission, the values that they're pursuing just don't feel comfortable for you anymore, that's a really clear sign. And I always say, like, mental health is so important to be in tune with. If you are at a point where you are absolutely miserable, where you're dreading every single Monday morning, where it's impacting your mental health so that you're having trouble sleeping, you're not eating well, you're just filled with anxiety, that's a pretty clear sign that it's probably time to start exploring new opportunities.
Very good. Thank you. And we have a question from Shannon. If you find an employee is applying for many open positions, it tells me the employee is ready to make a move out of their current role. However, what should we be asking this employee as they apply to many open roles? It's hard to know what this employee wants to do. It would be great to help guide her to the roles that are in line with what she wants to do, but I'm not sure how much we should ask since we are noticing the many applications from this employee. This is a tricky situation.
Yeah, it's really hard. And that's why, as a career coach on the private side of my business, when I am advising job seekers, I always tell them, do not apply for multiple different job openings at the same company if the titles are really varying and different, because that's just going to confuse HR. They're going to think, does this person even really, are they passionate about any of these roles, or are they just trying to get anything, right? Like, you need to make it clear that you're focused on something in particular. And I think that it's just going to end up like kind of leading you in the wrong direction, and it's not going to work in your favor. So with an internal situation like this, I would really, sit down and have a conversation with them and say something along the lines of, I notice that you're looking to make an internal move. We would love to support you in that and figure out what the best fit would be. But rather than, spreading yourself widely across all these roles, why don't we really focus on the aspects of your work you enjoy the most and see what that could potentially correlate to? Like, that's where areas of engagement is a really good exercise, and encouraging them to reflect on, what is the work, the projects, the tasks that you enjoy doing the most on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and really deep dive into that. And then ask yourself, okay, where are these tasks? Where are these tools most relevant? And really being able to, again, cultivate and pull out those transferable skills to find something that more directly correlates. So I would really just encourage them to be reflective on that. And another thing I always encourage people to do is, if they're not quite sure yet, before starting to apply, focus on internal networking. Like, have conversations with someone in engineering and project management, in HR, whatever the field is. Just go and put 15 minutes on their calendar to have a quick Zoom meeting, and ask them, what do you do on a daily basis? Like, what do you enjoy about your role? What do you dislike most about your role? And just focus on internal networking for you to be able to collect more information and do the market research. And then from there, you can make a more informed decision around what is the direction that you ultimately want to go.
Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah.
One last question, or feel free if anyone has anything else, speak up. But there's one from Savannah. She says, I'll be graduating next year with my bachelor's degree in HR. Congratulations.
Congrats.
What's your best piece of advice as I enter the professional setting? This is the best group of people to ask, but definitely we want to hear from Eliana and
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm sure there's a ton of wisdom in this group. So one of the things people know, I talk about it all the time, is, and I just mentioned it before, I think that the most important skill set you can develop in your career is the ability to network and develop relationships. So clearly you already have a career path that you want to pursue, and maybe you already have a company in mind, or I don't know if you even have employment lined up already, but always be networking. Whether you're on an active job search and you still haven't found a role, obviously connecting with people and really learning about them and their roles, leading with curiosity to really build relationships is going to be crucial, because, and I'm sure everyone here can back it up, like, referrals into companies are really, really impactful and effective when it comes to being able to land a job. So rather than just strictly focusing on a cold apply strategy, really focus on cultivating relationships with people, getting to know people, and seeing how those people can ultimately help you and refer you in for roles. If you're already at a company and you know what you're doing and you have that placement, I still always say, like, internal networking is so important. It's always good to really ingratiate yourself and get to know multiple people, multiple teams. So talk to people in HR, talk to people in marketing, talk to people in sales, right? Just get to know different people at your company. It's only going to benefit you. And when we talk about internal growth, it really helps you understand, like, where could I potentially see myself in 5 years within this company, right? We only understand and uncover that information through doing research and through conducting conversations. So whether it's external or internal, networking is really, I think, the key to being successful in your career.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
That is really good advice. Most people think about networking, they think external, meeting new people unrelated to their organization, but you can do so much in your current organization too. And even at school, before you graduate, that's so important.
Yep, exactly.
Advice.
Exactly.